morning. It's good to be here.
So you called the U.S. attack that killed Qasem Soleimani a, quote, assassination. President Ford issued an executive order in '76 to make political assassinations illegal. Are you saying that this strike was a violation of law?
Look, it was a targeted attack on a government official, a high-ranking military official for the government of Iran. And what it's done has moved this country closer to war. We are not safer today than we were before Donald Trump acted. I think the question that we ought to focus on is why now? You know, why not a month ago? Why not a month from now? And the answer from the administration seems to be they can't keep their story straight on this. They pointed in all different directions. And, you know, the last time we watched them do this was this summer over Ukraine. As soon as people started asking about the conversation between Donald Trump and the president of Ukraine and why aid had been held up to Ukraine, the administration did the same thing. They pointed in all directions about what was going on. And of course, what emerged then is this was Donald Trump just trying to advance Donald Trump's own political agenda, not the agenda of the United States of America. So what happens right now? Next week, the president of the United States could be facing an impeachment trial in the Senate. We know he's deeply upset about that. And I think people are reasonably asking, why this moment? Why does he pick now to take this highly inflammatory, highly dangerous action that moves us closer to war? We've been at war for 20 years in the Middle East. We need to stop the war in the Middle East, not expand it.
Senator, are you suggesting that President Trump pulled the trigger and had Qasem Soleimani killed as a distraction from impeachment?
Look, I think people are reasonably asking about the timing and why it is that the administration seems to have all kinds of different answers. In the first 48 hours after this attack, what did we hear? Well, we heard it was for an imminent attack. Then we heard, no, it was to prevent any kind of future attack. Then we heard from the vice president himself, no, it was related to 9/11. And then we heard from press reports of people in the intelligence community saying that the threat was overblown. You know, when the administration doesn't seem to have a coherent answer for taking a step like that, and they have taken a step that moves us closer to war, a step that puts everyone at risk, a step that takes puts our military at risk, puts our diplomats in the region at risk. We've already paid a huge price for this war. Thousands of American lives lost, a cost we've paid domestically and around the world. And at the same time, look what it's done in the Middle East. Millions of people who've been killed, who've been injured, who've been displaced. This is not a moment when a president should be escalating tensions and moving us to war. Well, the job of the president is to keep us safe, and that means move back from the edge.
One of the explanations that we've heard that you didn't mention is that on December 27th, the Iranian-backed militias ordered a strike that killed an American contractor. You said yesterday that you would not have ordered the strike against Soleimani, and you described him as a military leader. But we should also point out the Treasury Department designated the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that Soleimani was in charge of and the Quds Force as a terrorist group back in 2007. The U.S. State Department did the same for both groups last year. As president, would you not prioritize the U.S. military killing the leaders of organizations designated terrorist organizations?
Look, the job of the president is to keep us safe. And we know in this circumstance that Donald Trump was presented with a range of options by way of response. But the point is not to try to move us closer to war. The point is to move us away from that. You know, this problem, in large part, started back when Donald Trump took us out of the Iranian nuclear deal. Remember, we had worked with our allies and shown that diplomacy can work. We got Iran to the negotiating table, and Iran had ceased work on its nuclear program. That helps make the region safer. Now, Iran's not a good actor. There's no doubt about that. They're a bad actor. And there's more we needed to do with Iran. But Iran was in compliance with the nuclear deal. Our allies said stay in the deal. But Donald Trump, all by himself, said, nope, We're getting out of it. We're tearing it up. And then it's been a series of more and more provocative acts. And each time that happens, it moves America closer to war in the Middle East. We don't need more war in the Middle East. We need peace in the Middle East.
Take a listen to Vice President Joe Biden last night on the campaign trail.
We need to provide a steady, stable, experienced leadership. With all due respect, I think I'm best prepared to do than anybody running for president.
A recent CNN poll shows that Democratic voters agree Biden is head and shoulders above the rest of the Democratic field when it comes to who Democratic primary voters believe can best handle foreign policy. How do you counter that argument that the former vice president is making and seems to be winning?
Look, I get out every day and talk to voters all across Iowa, all across this country. And every piece of this is about judgment. It's about where we've been in the past, what our life experiences are, and how we see the world going forward. We have been at war for 20 years in the Middle East, and I understand there are people who are running for president who are willing to keep combat troops in the Middle East indefinitely. 5 years, 10 years. Lindsey Graham, I think, talked about 100 years. That's not in the interests of the United States of America. It's certainly not in the interests of the Middle East, and it's not in the interests of the world. We need to dial back from that. We face other risks in this world. With China, with Russia, we are under increasing economic pressure. The threat from climate change. We need to work with our allies. There's much we need to do internationally. Staying pinned down and escalating our wars in the Middle East is not in the long-term interests of the United States. And I will continue to talk about that with voters all across this country.
Senator, I just want to try to drill down a little on something you said earlier in the interview when you talked about the fact that people are asking the question about why President Trump carried out this operation when impeachment is about to recommence in the Senate. I know you're saying that people are raising the issue, and the administration has given a number of reasons for the strike against Soleimani. But what do you think? Do you believe that President Trump pulled the trigger on this operation as a way to distract from impeachment? Is that what you think?
Look, I think it is a reasonable question to ask, particularly when the administration, immediately after having taken this decision, offers a bunch of contradictory explanations for what's going on. Well, I think it's the right question to ask. We'll get more information as we go forward, but look at the timing on this and look at what Donald Trump has said afterwards and his administration. They've pointed in multiple directions. There was a reason that he chose this moment, not a month ago, not a month from now, not a less aggressive, less dangerous response. He had a whole range of responses that were presented to him. He didn't pick one of the other ones. He picked the most aggressive and the one that moves us closer to war. So what is everybody talking about today? Are we going to war? Are we going to have another 5 years, 10 years of war in the Middle East? Are we going to be dragged in once again? Are we going to bring another generation of young people into war? That's every bit of the conversation right now. Donald Trump has taken an extraordinarily reckless step, and we've seen him before. He uses foreign policy, he uses whatever he can to advance the interests of Donald Trump.
I would just again say that, I mean, the Trump administration does say that an American contractor was killed on December 27th. Obviously, there was the attacks on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. They point to that context as the reason for the strike. But